We're at the IAS meeting. We're here with Jeff Radebe, who is Minister of the Presidency in South Africa. We really appreciate your help to bring to light some of the issues that you face here in this country, still, even though we've done so well with this disease. So I think start out by maybe giving a little background on where we came from. Would that be a good way to start?
Well, thanks for inviting me to this program. As you know, this AIDS conference, World AIDS Conference, is coming for the second time here in South Africa in Durban. Way back 16 years ago in Durban in year 2000, we're in a very bad space as South Africa. There was a lot of pessimism whether we'll be able to rise up to the challenge of fighting the scourge and epidemic HIV and AIDS. But I'm happy to report right now that 16 years later, South Africa, under the leadership of our President, Jacob Zuma, and our Minister of Health, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, we have made great strides in improving our response to HIV and AIDS. Way back in 2000, there were about 400,000 people who were on the ARV treatment program. Today, we're covering 3.4 million South Africans and providing them with treatment on ARVs and other medications, which indicate that the South African government is fully in support of these initiatives. But as we always say, government cannot succeed on its own, so that's why we value the partnership with other global partners such as IAS and UNAIDS and other development partners so that we can be able to forge our heads to fight this epidemic.
It's good to hear the good news, but it's also, there's got to be some weak links in the chain. Where would you say that would be with maybe getting tested, or would you say getting access to treatment after being tested?
Yes, the responsibility of all South Africans, those that we encouraged, in fact, people to go for testing. And I can indicate that from our president, he does public testing for this disease, and many South Africans are following suit. So we believe that in the next few years, we'll be able to cover a number of people here in South Africa. But the other initiatives also fighting this disease, like we encouraged our people, especially men, to go for male circumcision because science has shown that when men are circumcised, the probabilities of getting this disease is minimized. But we still continue of our message of condomizing those who are involved in sexual activities.
I've just been told by a number of people that there's a number of studies being done here in South Africa, some that are covering the ring for the women, so they can address something from their perspective. There's, of course, condoms, there's, of course, PrEP, and there's the circumcision, and then there's a vaccine that's being studied. So there's a lot of, so when you add up those things, they're not only additive, but synergistic. Even if they're 50% like in the case of male circumcision, and you add whatever you get from PrEP is pretty profound. And of course, condoms are probably the best. So you just add it all up, and it makes it very hard for people to get HIV if they've taken the steps to do the right things in their mind.
Yes, indeed. That's why it's also important to disseminate this information. That is why I talked about the issue of partnership with non-governmental organizations, which are very strong here in South Africa, because government cannot be able to penetrate all communities. So we work very closely with the NGO community in order to spread the word. More particular, those vulnerable young people, especially young women and girls between the ages of 14 and 24, because they seem to be the ones that are most affected by HIV and AIDS. We know that here in Southern Africa and East Africa, about 2,000 infections every week are happening, which is a very huge number. So we need to stem that tide. But we can only succeed if there is this cooperation and partnership between government and other organs of civil society.
So the messages are being pretty well received by the public, and the trend is that people are becoming understandably invested in this process. So it seems like you could stem the tide and actually become free of AIDS at some point.
Yes, definitely. We are trying our level best. Even Mr. Michel Radebe, the head of UNAIDS, acknowledged in the opening session that South Africa is actually conducting the biggest HIV treatment program in the whole world. But that, I think, indicates that there's still a huge task ahead of us. So that's why we also rely on the research community around the world, the innovators, to eventually find the cure for AIDS. So I do hope that during this conference there will be a sharing of ideas and research amongst the research community in order to find a lasting solution to this epidemic.
I hope you do well, because if you do well and you do end up stemming the tide, as it were, other countries in Africa look at it and say, we can do that too. And that'll be huge.
Yes, indeed. That's why the Deputy President this morning was even meeting with Bill Gates of the Bill Gates Foundation, so that we can also find out what more we can do even from the philanthropic community, because it is important that all hands must be on deck as we fight the scourge of HIV and AIDS.
You've got a lot of support, and I welcome that for you, and I welcome you to visiting with me here today.
Thank you very much.